Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets. Or you can subscribe to the channel and click that notifications button and get a new notification whenever a new video is uploaded. This particular video, we're going to discuss psychology, basically, and how this could, the differing psychologies between the modern-day heavyweights and how this could influence the Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua fight. And we're going to compare Deontay Wilder to Muhammad Ali in terms of mentality. I'm not talking about fighting style or ability, but mentality. And then discuss how AJ or Fury measure up and how this obviously affects everything. Now, I know a lot of people are going to wonder, what is he talking about? Muhammad Ali and Deontay Wilder? We'll get to that. What inspired this video is a couple of other videos that I've come across of late. First and foremost, it was Hatman's video a couple of weeks ago, where he did a video with Jack Napier, where he asked Deontay Wilder, the most deluded heavyweight in history. And there was another video from somebody who, unfortunately, I feel terrible to say this, I can't remember who did this video. It was, I had YouTube playing and, it's like autoplay and then just another video comes up. And it was a video that came up from one of the crowd that believed that Deontay Wilder was cheated by Tyson Fury because they felt that something untoward happened with the gloves. Now, I've never been the sort of person to just dismiss any sort of theory, even if it sounds improbable, because if that's the case, any authority that teaches you anything, you will instantly believe it. You will always engage in cognitive dissonance no matter how much evidence is presented to you, and you'll forever be a mental slave, basically. You have to be able to critically think, to observe the evidence, think of it, then analyze it and decide whether you dismiss it or accept it. Never just dismiss outright. Well, I haven't looked at this evidence, and I personally cannot see a strong claim that something untoward happened with the gloves. I just can't see it. But there was one video that I've seen of late, like I said, which did raise some important topics, some important questions, which I thought about. It was uploaded about a month ago. Like I said, can't remember, unfortunately, the name of the account. But what this guy did is show an Instagram story that he alleges, or he claims that there was an Instagram story up from Anthony Joshua, which seemed to show the glove of Fury and seems to be playing along this same sort of singing along this same hymn sheet to suggest that something untoward happened. And he also uploaded a video which he purports was Lawrence Okolie, another sparring partner that Tyson Fury had, and Lawrence Okolie's trainer, Barry Robertson. He claims, this guy, that they have put out, and you can see the video, you can hear the video, that they are picking up the gloves of Tyson Fury, his sparring gloves, and showing that they're flimsy. These are the sparring gloves. Gloves are used for sparring. They went ballistic that Fury would use such gloves. But the gloves that they were assigned were actually quite bulky and padded. So they suggest something untoward happened. Personally, I'm not clued up enough about gloves to know. If you're going to go far back enough, a long, long time ago now, many eons ago, when I used to train, for me, I was more about the wraps. I wanted to wrap my hands really well, really tightly. When I had wraps on, I felt like so much confidence. I felt like I could punch through a wall. It got to the point, I grew up in a very rough area. I knew people that got murdered. I knew people that went to prison for murder. It was a very rough area. And one of my, I don't know if you can get, it's not a weapon, but one of, a weapon of choice, so to speak, was to have wraps in my school bag, which looking back now is proper stupid, because if a fight's going to happen, well, you're going to say, hold on a second, man, let me just wrap my wrists. Unless it was some sort of thing where someone's waiting for you outside of school or something, you were never going to wrap up your wrists, right? But it just gave me confidence if they were wrapped. And, talking of delusion, I was one of the deluded people. I used to have those wraps in my school bag. So when it came to gloves, my friend had some gloves. I tried them on. They felt comfortable. I bought the same gloves. When mine got worn out, I bought the same gloves again. So I was never really clued up when it came to gloves. Now, Hatman, who is an authority on gloves, he has done some brilliant videos about the different idiosyncrasies of each different glove and type of glove, has said actually the gloves that Fury was wearing, it's quite natural for them to be in that way, for the distribution of padding to be where it was, and so on and so forth. So he sees nothing untoward. But Lawrence Okolie and Barry Robinson and the other sparring partners seem to be complaining or implying that. This is what this guy is arguing in the video. So I thought about that and I thought, okay, that's unusual. That is unusual if you've got professional fighters who have been brought in for sparring and they're complaining and putting out a video like that, and professional trainer. However, when I thought about it a bit more, it actually made sense, because if they are the gloves you're going to wear and they're legal gloves and it's fine to wear them, then obviously you're going to want to wear them in sparring to break them in, right? It's just natural. You're going to want to know they're comfortable and so on and so forth. And as for asking your sparring partners to wear different types of gloves, Vladimir Klitschko does that too. That's probably to do with you not getting a bruise or nick or a cut or, sustain any serious damage, because you're working on things. From your perspective, you're working on things technically, so you don't want to get hurt. But also, you want to wear the gloves that you're going to wear on fight night. So really, when you, again, analyze it, I don't really see much there. But it made me think about this general discussion of, because the fact is, I did think for a moment, oh, this is interesting. And I had to think about it to then consider the evidence and then say, actually, I don't think there's much of a story here. But the fact that I had to think about it made me start to think about the mentality of Deontay Wilder. And I thought of this video that Hatman put out. And although I agree with Hatman that there is an element of real delusion to Deontay Wilder, I'm going to argue in this video that it actually benefits him in many regards, and it's helped him make him the fighter he is today. It has also and will also hold him back in other aspects of his career, for sure. It will prevent growth, but that extreme self-confidence that verges on grandiosity is something that Muhammad Ali had, and it was also both beneficial and destructive to him. Whereas someone like Anthony Joshua doesn't have that. But because of that, he has certain strengths. And because of that, he has weaknesses that these guys don't. So I just want to discuss this, how different mentalities can affect different fighters and how different fighters can grow or be stunted in different ways as a result. And then I want to hear your views on this. So, to give you an example of what I'm talking about when I'm saying extreme self-confidence and verging on grandiosity, it does become a problem if you're going to get this air of contemptuous superiority. You look down on others with contempt. You have no interest in what they've got to say. It can stop you from growth. That's true. You have to be self-critical. But take a guy like Deontay Wilder. How long have been people saying he's not technical, he doesn't know how to fight, he just windmills? Deontay, what are you going to go to the Olympics for, man? You ain't no technical amateur fighter. You're a power puncher. Just turn pro. Goes to the Olympics, wins a bronze medal. Turns pro, man, that guy, he's too skinny, he's lanky, he ain't going to make anything of himself in the heavyweight division. They're going to break that skinny little neck and those skinny little chicken legs. He's going to get battered, becomes heavyweight champion of the world. Man, he ain't going to last. How long is he going to last out there? He's not going to make any defenses. Long reigning champion for many years. Now, I understand many people will say, yeah, but who did he fight? That's irrelevant. From his perspective, people kept saying, you're not going to do this, you can't do this, you're not going to do this. And he kept proving them wrong again and again and again and again. So what happens is you develop this idea of me against the world, or us, our team against the world. You keep doubting. Every time he beats the doubters, he silences the critics. It reinforces his belief that he's the man and he can't be beaten. So is he emotional and delusional? Yes, but it helped him it helped him overcome all those obstacles and achieve the impossible. Take Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali had those same delusions of grandeur. Okay, when he was going to fight Sonny Liston, people used to say, Sonny Liston? Are you mad? This guy's a beast. He punches so hard. He's got a great jab. He might even be better than the great Rocky Marciano. What chance does Muhammad Ali have? He's going to get killed. Muhammad Ali was harassing this dude, turning up at his house. Sonny Liston had to turn up with a gun and start shooting in the air to make Muhammad Ali run away. Muhammad Ali was harassing him, telling him, I'm the greatest. You're a big ugly bear. I'm going to beat the brakes off you. What did he go and do? He shocked the world. He believed. No one else believed. Then he goes into exile. He comes back. You ain't beating Joe Frazier. He lost that fight. But he believed after exile, I will beat Joe Frazier. Then this animal, this beast comes along in George Foreman, ragdolls Joe Frazier. The man that beat Muhammad Ali ragdolls him, beats him from pillar to post. And now Muhammad Ali, who's not, he's past his best, he wants to fight George Foreman. Is this guy nuts? I'm the greatest. I'm going to beat him. I'm the greatest. What does he go and do? He shocks the world. Every time, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it, he does it again and again and again and again. And that mental tool, that delusion is what made it possible. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say to me, but it wasn't delusional. It was self-belief. No, it was self-belief driven by delusion. And I'll tell you why I know this is the case. Because of his friend, Ferdy Pacheco. His friend, Ferdy Pacheco, was a doctor. And Muhammad Ali went to him, I think, in 1960. He went to him in 1960 to have some treatment, whatever it was. I think he used to go and get jabs from this guy. And for 17 years he was going there and they became good friends. And after the Ken Norton fight, Ferdy said to him, listen, Muhammad, I'm seeing some worrying signs here. There are some issues here. You must stop boxing. You have to stop. Did he stop? He went and fought Joe Frazier in a beast of a fight. Was that? No, sorry. He said it after the Frazier fight. Did Frazier come before or after Norton? Whatever it was, after one of those big fights shouldn't have taken place, basically. Then he went on to fight guys like Trevor Berbick, Spinks, Larry Holmes. These are fights that never should have happened. He had neurological issues. His doctor had to stop treating him, saying, look, you know what, forget it. They used to call him to come and treat Ali. He used to go into camp. And he stopped going. He said, I'm not going anymore. I can't do this. I can't continue to support you to do this. And Muhammad Ali was so delusional. The poor man, it's tragic. It's so sad. But he was so delusional and had such incredible self-belief that he felt, you know what? I've got tremors. I've got this. I've got that. I'm going to become heavyweight champion of the world again because I'm the greatest. And look how it cost him. And Ferdy Pacheco said that in 2012, he met Ali again and they embraced. And he said when he embraced Ali, he could feel the tremble. Ali was trembling, this mountain of a man. He said this incredible specimen of human being. And he was trembling. And he whispered to him and he said, Ferdy, you was right. How tragic is that? It took all that pain, that emotional pain and years of physical suffering for him to realize and say, you know what? My doctor, it's his job, he's a specialist in this, telling me as a fighter, stop this. And I continued, and it took all that for him to realize it. But if he wasn't the sort of guy to get up against Joe Frazier, when the chips were down and he took that shellacking and he survived and he won that third fight, if he wasn't the sort of guy to hang in there on the rope-a-dope and take that beating from Foreman and hang in there and win the fight, if he didn't have that delusion, he wouldn't have won those fights. And Deontay Wilder, by the same token, listen, say what you want about Deontay Wilder. That man is a warrior. I don't care whether you like him as a person. I don't care whether you like his fans. There are a lot of fighters that sit there and they say, you know what, I will die in the ring. And then when push comes to shove, they quit. When sometimes you're questioning, should he have quit? Well, this guy was out on his shield. He was half dead, man. They threw in the towel. They saved his life. And he's turned against them because of it. And it's not just some excuse. He was hanging in there. He could have stayed down. No, nothing forced him to get up after the knockdowns. He got up because he's a warrior. Because he has arrogance. That delusion gives him that arrogance. I'm not going to lose to this fool. What are people going to say? I'm Deontay Wilder, man. I ain't losing to this guy. Now let's fast forward to Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua is a much more humble man. I've told a couple of stories of me meeting Anthony Joshua in the past. Long-time subscribers might remember them. The more new, the more recent subscribers, you wouldn't have heard these stories. I'm not going to go over them now because they're quite time-consuming. But I will say that I'll mention them again in the future. But I will say this: he's a very, very humble man, to the point whereby, at the end of the day, I'm a nobody. And I was talking to this guy about boxing, and I wasn't going too deep and technical like I do in these videos. But maybe I said enough for him to realize, okay, this guy knows a little bit about boxing. And I'm a nobody at the end of the day. He was proper listening to me. He was listening. Now, that doesn't mean he took what I said as gospel. I don't have these delusions of grandeur. I'm thinking, yeah, man, I taught AJ a thing or two. I'm not saying that. But he was willing to listen. He might have dismissed it all. But to give you an example of what I'm talking about, go onto YouTube and type in Caleb Plant and James Toney. James Toney, not Chris Andre, James Toney, right? One of the greats. He's talking to Caleb Plant. And Caleb Plant's sitting there on his phone, barely listening. And you've got all these comments at the bottom saying, what is this fool doing? This guy's trying to teach him something about inside fighting. And Caleb Plant's away with the fairies. Well, AJ listens. And I'm not just talking to me. Forget me. Like I said, I'm a nobody. There are other people out there when he's talking to Bellew, Johnny Nelson. Go and see how focused he is listening to these people, asking their opinions. Yeah, is that what you think? Yeah. And he'll think, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And he's listening and he's absorbing information. He might critically analyze it. You must always critically analyze it and then dismiss it. Or he might take it on board, but he listens. And that is what enables that self-critique, which enables growth. And that is why he has grown as a fighter year on year on year. But because he does not have those delusions of grandeur, that humility he has that helps him grow, because he doesn't have that, Maybe that's why he spat his scum shield out against Andy Ruiz, where many people feel he quit. He was going back to the corner and saying, what's happening to me? Deontay Wilder wasn't asking those questions, ever thinking about spitting out his gum shield. Maybe that's the difference. He doesn't have that thing of, what will people say? I'm Anthony Joshua, man. I can't lose. Those delusions of grandeur might be what made him less durable. Now, I know Hatman also in his video referred to the idea that the thing is with Wilder, he doesn't respect the great fighters of the past. He's spoken about knocking out Mike Tyson and stuff like that. And so in a way, when you don't respect those of the past, you can't learn from those in the past. And again, to an extent, I do agree with Hatman. However, there is some slight difference here because he spoke about Mike Tyson wasn't like that, Ali wasn't like that. That's true. You know, Mike Tyson would often speak about Jack Dempsey, Muhammad Ali, various great fighters. While Muhammad Ali, once he became a star, they interviewed him and they asked him if he'd beat Rocky Marciano. And Rocky Marciano was in the studio and he said, nah, man, Rocky would win. And late in his life, when he was, you know, Parkinson's had on set, he was on the Arsenio Hall show. Arsenio Hall's that guy who was with Eddie Murphy, the actor Eddie Murphy in Coming to America. Coming to America #2 is coming out, by the way. And Arsenio asked who would win between the two of them. And they both said each other, but it was Ali first that jokingly pointed at Tyson like he was scared of Tyson. He never even lost his sense of humor even then. But if they were going to fight, if he was going to fight a prime Rocky Marciano, if he was going to fight a prime Mike Tyson, he wouldn't have said the other guy. That's just an element of humility, but he said it. And that's what the point is of Hatman, that look, he respected the fighters of the past and even the champions of the future. However, while I agree, there is one key difference. When Muhammad Ali said what he said about Marciano, he was already accepted as the #1 guy in the world, as a superstar. When Mike Tyson pointed to Muhammad Ali in that same instance, Mike Tyson was bigged up as the next big thing, the superstar, the youngest heavyweight ever, destructive force. Whereas look how people have always spoken about Deontay Wilder, his critics. He's a bum, he's a windmiller, he can't do this, he can't do that. So what happens is, he gets this element, he gets his back up, he gets a chip on his shoulder, and he gets this element of, who are these fools, man? I'll knock out Mike Tyson. Don't tell me about Mike Tyson. Now, Anthony Joshua, who's humble, has reacted aggressively to Lennox Lewis in the past. So just because they're, you know, a little bit aggressive sometimes or dismissive of a former great, that's the fighter in them. I wouldn't look too much into that personally. I think it's more to do with the fact that Wilder hasn't had the respect as many other great fighters, and neither did Larry Holmes. And maybe that's why Larry Holmes also had an attitude when speaking about some of the great fighters of the past. Okay, so maybe that's got more to do with credit that they get. But the point is, for me, when you're arrogant like they are, Wilder, Ali, Tyson Fury falls into that category. You have incredible self-belief and you never seem to jack it in. How many times has Fury been down and gotten up? Package, Cunningham, Deontay Wilder bites on that gum shield and goes to war. And Ben Davison said to him, you got to become the Gypsy King now. It's like he's got a second persona. I'm the flashy, slick boxer, too fast, too furious, he says. When things get tough, I become the Gypsy King. We're going to have a gypsy war. That's how he sees it. He doesn't jack in because he has that pride. I can't back down. But what would have happened if he'd gotten up half a second later against Deontay Wilder? If he didn't make the count, half a second, he would have come out and said, I'm better than Deontay Wilder. Now, I think he's pretty much proven that he's better than Deontay Wilder. Most people felt he won the first fight. He destroyed Wilder in the second fight. It's pretty much a question that's been answered, I would feel. And yet, how did Fury know to approach the fight in the second fight the way he did? What he says is that after he got up, after that knockdown, and he went at Wilder, he realised, I've got the beating of this guy physically. I'm the better athlete, I'm stronger than him, I'm going to get inside, I'm going to smash this guy to pieces in the rematch. If he'd never gotten up, he never would have learned that. So maybe in a rematch, he again would have got on the back foot, and maybe he would have got caught again. Who knows? But what would have happened after that first fight is that Ben Davison would have got blamed. 100%. Think about it. He beat Otto Wallin. And people hold that against Fury. It's actually a very good win because Wallin is a good fighter, very good fighter. He's not elite, but he's a very good fighter. The cut, when you get a cut like that, unless it's due to sustained You know, if I'm jabbing your face off all night and I'm cutting up, like when Malignaggi cut up the face of Senchenko, that was a consistent jab the whole night. It was like cheese grater across his face. That's consistent damage. You got to give credit to the guy that's given the damage because he's consistently hurt you there. If it's a one-off shot that cuts you, it's kind of lucky in a sense. How many of those shots are going to cut you in the same way? So even with that crisis, he still won the fight. So although a lot of people hold it against him, really, it was more of a comfortable win than people give him credit for. What did he win? The fight 9-3, 10-2, 9-3, I think it was. It was only because of that cut, and people are going, "Oh man, if this fight gets stopped on the cut, it would have been a jammy win for Vailline." So the point I'm making here is that if he'd lost after that fight, rather, when that fight happened and he won that fight, his dad blamed Ben Davison. He brought in another trainer, ended up with Ben Davison leaving, and he won. He overcame a crisis and won it comfortably. What would have happened if he'd lost to Wilder? 100%. Ben Davison would have got sacked. People would have blamed that. Inexperienced trainer, long layoff, blah, blah, blah. And again, people would have been saying, what about Tyson Fury? He's finding excuses. He's not better than Wilder. He's just delusional. In reality, he is better than Wilder. And he wouldn't have been delusional to say, I just got caught and I'm better than him. But that's my point. There are so many fine margins, small details in boxing that can change the entire trajectory of the sport. And it's not always really a reflection of reality. But the point I'm making here is Tyson Fury, they've been gassing his head an awful lot in that corner. They're making out like what? Like AJ's nothing. Something that they used to do with Deontay Wilder. He's a similar sort of mindset to Wilder, in my opinion. That incredible self-belief. The only way Wilder could lose is if his drink was spiked or if his trainer was in on it, right? You couldn't have just met a better guy. Is this possible with Fury? How will he react if he loses? But because he's this way with that level of arrogance, is he willing to go to places that AJ isn't willing to go? And one thing that AJ always said, and he sparred Fury in the past, with Fury, he said, with Wilder, I believe I'll walk across the ring, I'll land one big right hand, I'll take him out. He always said that about Wilder. Fury, he goes, I think it'll be a really hard, grueling fight, and I'll get him late. But he said it'll be a hard, grueling fight. If it's a hard, grueling fight, whose personality traits do you trust more? Let me know what you think, guys. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you think I'm the delusional one for talking about the similarities between the personalities of Ali and Deontay Wilder. And yeah, thanks for watching. In fact, let me tell you one more anecdotal story before I go. My grandfather was an old man, obviously. By the time, well, he was an old man at a point in his life where he became very ill. He had fluid on the lungs, and even walking up the stairs, he'd be wheezing by the time he got to the top of the stairs, okay? In his day, though, he was a very tough man. Facially, he looked like Jake LaMotta, right? I always used to, think that whenever I used to see him. But he was a boxer. He was a boxer in the army. We're of Greek Cypriot origin. Cyprus was a colony of Britain, and all the citizens of Cyprus would get called up to do national service and stuff like that. So he was a boxer in the British Army, and he was very good. He'd won medals and so on and so forth. And he was a Jack the Lad as well. He was not just a tough man, he was a Jack the Lad in the sense that, when I was a little kid, he owned a social club, and the type of social clubs, snooker halls and snooker tables in the front, arcade machines, rooms in the back that are closed off, smoky rooms with some shady characters and even some respectable characters, believe it or not. Side by side playing cards, the house gets a cut and he was the house. He was that type of character, you know what I'm talking about. He was a tough guy. He used to have, I remember this, actually I won't get into that. The point is, he was a tough guy. When I was about 9 years old, 8-9 years old, I was in the car. We were driving, we were in East London, we were going to the Walthamstow Market, right? With my grandmother and grandfather to go and do their little weekly shop. Like I said, old man wheezing if he walks up one flight of stairs. And as we're driving, this car in front of us stops. And the other car that's coming the other lane also stops. So they stop next to each other and they start talking away. Now, the guy in the front, he was a sort of character that had his window open, a real gym guy, like a bodybuilder, roided up guy. And he's having his arm out the window, he's wearing a vest, he's wearing these massive chains, that type of guy. It could be 2 degrees weather. He's going to wear a vest so you can see how wedgy he is, right? That's the sort of guy he was. They start chatting away. My grandfather waits 10, 15 seconds. He's thinking, what's going on here? And then he bibs. He hits the horn. And this guy puts his head out the window and he starts swearing at my grandfather. This guy's massive. My grandfather, at this point in his life, my grandmother would have beaten him in a fight because she pushed him, he'd fall over. He couldn't stand up. And I jump over from the back. I'm sitting in the back seat. I jump over. I've got my hands around his neck. I'm trying to stop him getting out of the car. And my grandmother's trying to hold his arm to stop him getting out of the car because he grabbed a wrench to go and teach this fool a lesson. This guy would have killed him. If he'd gotten to the car before collapsing, this guy would have given him one slap and killed him. Now, we stopped him getting out of the car. He couldn't even outpower an 8-year-old boy and my grandmother to get out of the car, right? Let alone have a chance against this guy in a fight. The guy didn't even realise what was going on in front. He finished his conversation and he drove off home. And I remember telling my dad in the evening how scary it was. Like, you know, if granddad had got out, think about what would have happened. And he said to me, you know what, Chris? When it comes to age, the body ages, but the soul does not. Emotionally, he's still that same tough guy. He's still that same guy that, who is this fool talking to? Who is he disrespecting? I'm asking him to just pull aside so I can go forth, and he's turning his head out and swearing at me because he body builds. I'm going to go and smash this guy's head in and see how tough he is. That's his mentality. That doesn't age just because you age. And he gave me the analogy of when you see these middle-aged men that hit on younger women. In their minds, maybe they didn't get to live out their lives and have that excitement. Or maybe they did and they were players when they were young. They were really good-looking dudes that managed to get a lot of women. They don't realize that they've aged. So to them, there's a beautiful 24, 25-year-old woman. I'm 45. I've put on a lot of weight. I've lost my hair. I'm still that same guy. I can still turn on the charm because his soul has not aged. And this is the thing with these guys that, referring to Tyson Fury now, the reason I'm bringing up this last story is because of the whole swimming incident, where a lot of people have said, look how much weight he's put on. Maybe Tyson Fury's personality makes him think, like my granddad, doesn't matter what condition I'm in, I'm Tyson Fury. And that's an example of how it can hurt him if he's ill-prepared. But if it's a dog in a fight, you know Fury's going to be there. How will AJ react? Let me know what you think, guys. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. Take care and God bless.